Right, so for those of y'all that maybe don't know, we are currently working with Project Cure. We actually had an event on Saturday the 24th. We all went out, sorted some medical supplies, and it was a lot of fun. We're hoping to do that again. Um, so I know I haven't been super active on the group me, but we're going to start scheduling pretty soon. We're going to try to get another event in for this month. So let me post the link in the chat real quick for the group me for those of y'all that can't use the sign up code. So if you haven't joined the group me already, go ahead and do it. And yeah, we'll get some more volunteering in underway. Thank you again, by the way, for everyone that showed up.
All right, so last thing before handing it over to our speakers, we are going to have a volunteer event in collaboration with the American Society of Civil Engineers, and that's going to take place on Friday, November 13th from 8:30 to noon, and the address is shown in the slide. And it's a really good opportunity to volunteer and get points from that. Also, it's really fun, get to socialize with the BMES and ACE members, and if you're interested, please sign up first by through the HFB website by scanning the QR code in this slide. And after you register with HFB, please go ahead and confirm through by signing the Google form. It's also the QR code on the left. And we do have limited spots. So if you're interested, please sign up as soon as possible. So that's all what I have. And let's hand it over to the presenters, please.
Wait, hold on. We need to take a picture real quick.
Oh, yes. So Lolly, go ahead, take it over.
Okay. Martin, do you mind unsharing?
Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and take our picture right now.
And if everyone wants to turn on their cameras, you don't have to, but and we could do one with us smiling and the second one with our little coupon. So
are we supposed to say cheese or like what is there like a code word we're supposed to
a special word? No, I haven't made up one. You can say cheese. I like
What's
cheese.
the special word, Gabe? Come
yeah, we'll say Gabe.
No, Gabe. Come
Gabe,
on,
yeah, Gabe's the word.
We'll go ahead with that.
Okay. So everyone say Gabe. We're so glad he's here. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Gabe. Okay, and now go Cougs. Oh wait, I can't do one. Take a picture. Okay.
Dr. Spillers had to sit there and
go Cougs. Okay, awesome. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Okay, Martin, get back onto the sharing, and we'll get down to the real meat of this presentation. Let's go ahead. I'm going to introduce our speakers real quick, and then I'll let Dr. Spillers take over from there because he has a PowerPoint or a presentation to share. So Dr. Spillers, for you, those of y'all that don't know him, he used to be the advisor for the BME department. Now he's the director of the PreHealth Advising Center here at UH. He also had plenty of experience with doing the exact same thing with PreHealth advising at University of Georgia. So he has knowledge in this stuff. He knows what he's doing. And then our other speaker, Gabe Gidley, he's a student at the McGovern Medical School, graduated from University of Michigan with a bachelor's of engineering in biomedical engineering, magna cum laude, and then worked in Dr. Mohan's lab for the past couple of years until he moved on to medical school. But I'm gonna go ahead and let Dr. Spillers take over, and I haven't got it from there.
And it won't take long. I just kind of, for those of you that aren't familiar with my office, I do want to share some information. So can y'all allow me to share my screen?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and quickly do that for you.
I just have a couple slides.
Let's see. I think I just have to make you a co-host.
Are they fall themed?
There we go. Got it. All right. So let's roll. Y'all can see that?
Yep.
There we go. Okay. So as was mentioned, so I am the director of the PreHealth Advising Center at the University of Houston. This is a new office. And so before January of this year, this office didn't exist. And so that's why I kind of want to go over who we are and what we do and just make it known to y'all that we're here if you need help. So the mission of our office is to assist UH students interested in healthcare careers. So this could include medicine, it could include dentistry, but it's the whole gamut of healthcare professions, okay? PA, PT, nursing, occupational therapy. If there's something in healthcare that you're interested in, I may not know too much about it, but we can figure it out together. But we want you to utilize our office. We do offer guidance on the various healthcare career paths that I mentioned, including admission requirements, the application process, and the overall timelines for applying. Importantly, I'm not going to replace your major advisor. So y'all are in BME, you're still going to meet with Dr. Waits. You would only meet with me supplemental, after you meet with her and whatever other advisors that you have, part of your major and minor. When it's not COVID, my office is on the second floor of CBB, right across from the Writing Center, but I have been working from home, as many staff and faculty at UH have. And so the best way to reach me is through our office email, which is listed here, prehealth@uh.edu. Bottom line is, if you have a question specific about your particular situation, feel free to shoot us an email. Either myself or my advisor, Melissa Young, will get back to you. Very good about getting back with emails. Hopefully y'all remember that from when I was in BME. I'm just very anal about getting emails done before the end of the day or the next day. The website, I have put a lot of work into this website. So if you're looking for a place to start, to get some general information for whatever path you're interested in, definitely check our website, because chances are I've probably answered your question up front. But again, if there's anything that you feel like you need more clarification on, feel free to shoot us an email. This is the website. Explore different career paths, preparation, application process. If you're not on our mailing list, definitely join it. And you can do it on the front page of our site. That's our primary means of communicating from our office to you all. So some of you are on the listserv. And basically what I do, I try not to spam you too much, right? So I try to send out events that are coming up, and then any big changes down the pipeline that y'all may need to know about. So for instance, we have new anatomy and physiology courses that are a big deal for pre-PA and pre-dental students. I sent out information about that last week. And so there's things like that that I think that y'all need to know, and you're not going to get it unless you're on the listserv. So definitely join the mailing list. We have appointments available to navigate. So if you have more than a quick question, you really want to get into the details, into the weeds about your path, you can make an appointment with me or my advisor and navigate. Keep in mind, demand is very high. It is just me and one other person serving the entire campus community. So if you don't see available appointment, just be patient. I upload more appointment slots every 2 weeks. And then Melissa, my advisor, does it on a month-to-month basis. So she opens them out for 4 weeks. I have to have a little more flexibility, so I only do 2 weeks at a time. So if you don't see it, just wait another few days or a week, and then you'll eventually be able to make an appointment. And then, of course, view our event calendar. So if you feel like you've already missed some emails about events coming up, I add them to our event calendar as well. So check that out. Quick fact handouts. These are within each of the different areas of healthcare advising. So this is the pre-med one that I put together. You're looking just for a quick and dirty outline of what you need to apply to medical school or preparation process. You can look at these quick facts, and I think they'll give you an overview of what you're going to be looking out for in terms of classes and the timeline. And then this is the calendar. Like I said, we try to include student organization meetings. And as a matter of fact, we need to get together about adding BMES to this calendar and to the emails that I send out every week. Upcoming workshops, presentations and webinars, all of that. So definitely check out the calendar, because like I said, I try to keep it as updated as possible with upcoming stuff. When should you meet with us? Ideally, if you're a freshman or just beginning to think about going into a healthcare profession, definitely review our website and explore the student organizations available before meeting with us, because I want you to have some working knowledge before we get together. That way I don't have to feel like I have to explain everything to you. But you can make an appointment with us virtually right now in Navigate. And then when you do make the appointment, try to give me some background about your questions and the reasons behind the appointment. I just like to be prepared. So you can select a pre-med appointment, but I don't know what that specifically means. You could want to talk about the MCAT or taking a gap year or applying, whatever. Try to include that in your reasons for making the appointment. There's a little comments box. It just helps me out. And then always check your email for the meeting details. Sometimes Navigate emails go to y'all spam. But the way I operate with virtual appointments is you call my office line, okay? And it will be redirected to my cell phone. I don't do virtual chat for these appointments because I like to have my computer available as I'm talking to you. So we talk over the phone. So just call my office line for your appointment. And again, I add appointments every 2 weeks. So if you don't see one open, there will be one available soon. And that's it. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail beyond that because I'm sure that me and Gabe can do that together with any of the questions that y'all have. So stop share. Good to go? Good deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, if anybody has any questions or anything, please feel free to ask either Dr. Spillers or Gabe, either in chat or just through voice. I mean, they're both really available and open to answering.
And here's what I'll say too. Gabe, I think, has an interesting perspective because he did essentially take a gap year. And what I can tell you, just in my, mining data for people getting into medical school and talking to current medical students, taking a gap year is becoming more and more of a thing. The data from 2019 shows that 66% of students who got into medical school, so they were successful, had been out of college for at least a year, meaning they had taken a gap year. So that means the majority of students who got in did not follow this traditional applied as a junior, started right after graduation. And the reason for that, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons, but the main one is it's just so competitive. And even if you're a good, strong student, there may be some weak spots in your application that you feel like you need to work on. Take the time to do it. You're not going to be looked at weird or be the odd duck or looked down upon because you took a gap year. You will benefit from it. And I think Gabe is testament to that. He came back to Texas, worked on the spots that he felt like he needed to work on, and it worked for him. And we actually had McGovern come and do a little workshop maybe about 3 weeks ago. And we had some other first and second years from McGovern on that call. And there was a couple of them that also took gap years. I mean, it's just not a weird thing to do, and you won't be too old. I don't want to hear anybody say, oh, I'll be 25, I'll be 20. Like, no, that's not old. So if you are unsure about when you should apply, or if you're ready, I can tell you right now, taking a year or so to kind of get your affairs in order and work on your weak spots really can be a benefit. There is no timeline except for the timeline you set for yourself. Don't worry about your peers. So that's my soapbox.
Okay, so Gabe, you have anything you want to add on?
Yeah, so I kind of put it in the chat. There's someone who's actually one of my very good friends in med school that I've met so far, who's 40 years old and in med school. And he actually served in the military. He was flying jets. He was in the Air Force and was like, you know what? I want to go to med school. And he took a couple of years to like get some things taken care of, and now he's in. And
I will tell y'all, as an engineering student, like, y'all have a lot more on your plate than the typical NSM biology. Like, you just have more stuff you have to get done. The engineering program, BioE, is 131 credit hours, right? And that's without the pre-med prereqs. And so there's no real reason you should see yourself as a typical traditional, I'm going to apply after junior year, because it's just not going to be that plausible. It could work. We've had students do it, but I just don't want you to feel obligated or tied to that. And so if you're looking at it as, I can't remember who mentioned it, I'm a 5-year student, like, that's okay. Like, as long as you've planned it and you are productive, like I said, you'll benefit from it, you know?
Yeah, the other thing that I've noticed is a lot of students that have taken a gap year actually tend to do a little bit better grade-wise. And part of that is just because they gave their brain a break to kind of like not do school for like a year or 6 months or whatever. And that also comes with a little bit more with maturity and trying to figure out, how to study better and things like that. And I would kind of recommend anyone applying to med school to take a year off to see what else is out there, because med school is a beast. It's very different than anything you've ever done before. I mean, we're all engineers, I think, for the most part. And so we all think, oh, it's not going to be that hard, and it's not hard. It's just volume. It's just so much information. And you only have like 2 or 3 months off and then jump right back into it isn't really good for yourself. And yeah, if anyone has any questions about anything, yeah. So I took some time off, focused on the other things, did research, got some publications. and then applied, and I got in. So I'm very, non-traditional. I'm 25 years old and a first-year med student, and the average age is around like 24. So definitely take some time off. But I don't know. Does anyone have any questions about like med school or anything?
Real quick question to kind of both you and Dr. Spillers. Because you had mentioned to Gabe that you did research, what do y'all think the benefit, or I mean, how much do you think research is weighed whenever the admissions is looking at it for medical school?
Yeah. So it's not necessarily like some metric that's like, oh, you have publications, we're going to take you. It's just something else to kind of set you apart, I think, to help differentiate you. Because sometimes some people have like tons of research, other people don't. And it's not like a deciding factor, but it helps kind of separate you from other people, because it's another great talking point in an interview is being like, hey, I did research.
To follow up on that, so it really will depend on the school that you're applying to. So like, for instance, UH College of Medicine puts a little less emphasis on it. Not that it's going to hurt you if you have research, but they don't put as much stock into it as maybe community or clinical involvement. Whereas schools like maybe McGovern or Baylor College of Medicine or UT Southwestern, they're a little more research heavy in their curriculum. And so if you're trying to apply to those schools, research is going to be more expected. I don't know of one medical school that requires research. And in fact, most admissions committees will tell you, don't do research if you don't like it, because at the end of the day, your efforts and your talents will be better served in something you like and you're excited about. And so, for instance, Gabe didn't do research because he thought, this is the best thing I can do for myself. He just saw it as an opportunity to maybe gain some of these more general skills that you can apply once you're in medical school that have nothing to do with the actual research that you're doing. And that's what I think he means by, it sets you apart. They're not looking at, well, you did research on cancer, that makes you better than the person who did research on schizophrenia or something like that. That's not true. It's more about how engaged were you in terms of this project? Did you work as a team? Were you expected to hit milestones at a certain point? Did you deal with complicated data and sensitive data? Those are all things you're going to have to do in medical school. And so they see it as a transference of these skills you've already honed that you'll be able to apply in medical school that maybe a normal undergraduate hasn't had that opportunity would be able to. So I don't want y'all to think of these things in isolation as I need to do X check mark, X check mark. Think about it in terms of, if I do this, what skills or character traits or qualities does it exemplify that I can then later apply in medical or dental school? Because when you complete the activities and experience section of your application, you're going to be asked to write what it was about. And you don't want to spend all of your character limit outlining the description. I pipetted, I did change media in cells. Like, they can make those assumptions about what you did. What you want to talk about is the meaningful, nature of what you were doing, what you learned from it. Does that make sense? If you were at HEB and you were a cashier, you don't need to spend 300 characters explaining what a cashier does. They know what a cashier does. But what you can explain is, what did being a cashier in a grocery store teach you? You worked with strangers, right? You showed up on time and had a schedule that you had to follow. You had to balance coursework with a work schedule. You had to work with, a team to kind of reach goals that you had as a business. So those are the things that they can apply to medical school. They're not worried about the minute details that are specific to HEB. So that's what I think when it comes to utilizing your time outside of class. Find things that are interesting to you and that give you these bigger picture qualities that you can apply later down the line. Gabe, were you ever familiar with the AAMC core competencies?
Yeah.
So I encourage all of you to just Google AAMC core competencies. What these are 15 qualities that the deans of medical schools got together and said, this is what we want applicants to have. A portion of it is science knowledge, but the rest are these character traits that they want for medical students that they can trust to put in their hospitals. So when you're thinking about all of the activities that you've engaged in, Project Cure or Go Baby Go, look and say, okay, Go Baby Go, being involved in that project, which of these competencies did that exemplify? Does that make sense? So that's how would you talk about your experiences and activities. Don't talk about them in like these very specific terms. Talk about them in bigger picture and contextualize them with these competencies that medical schools are looking for. Oh, somebody.
Okay. Yeah, I had linked it to the chat.
So this is
we'll
what I
also-
always recommend. Like everyone asks me like, well, how do I describe, what I did when I shadowed? And it's like, you can say I followed so-and-so doctor around and saw them perform this type of procedure. And it's like, yeah, but we know what shadowing is. What does shadowing really do for you? And you can use these competencies to contextualize that, but it basically needs to get to the point of shadowing helped me confirm that this is the type of interaction with people and the use of my talents to help people as a career that I want. They don't need to know, like I said, the minutia of I saw this procedure and this procedure and this procedure. That just doesn't tell them that much. They want to know what you got out of it and how it helped you figure out this is my path. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of, from what I'm personally getting from it is that you're taking the core principles, not the specific or explicit, like this is X, Y, and Z what I did. But like you mentioned, the principles.
Right. Because you're only given so much space and you don't want to use that space for, like I said, this minutia of like, yeah, I did X, Y, and Z. You want to say, I did X and this is what I learned from it. This is what it taught me. This is what how I hope to use it later down in medical school. And I think they'll benefit from that type of introspection, But I have a question for you. I mean, you just went through the whole application process and obviously yours was a little different, right? Because of COVID and stuff. Well, like, I guess you were pre-COVID in terms of.
Yeah.
I guess COVID's really impacting where you're at now, but is there any sort of nuanced detail with applying or interviewing that you didn't know about that you would tell somebody now? Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, for sure. So the one thing that I kind of always knew, but because I'm also part of student ambassadors at McGovern, which helps do interview days, is earlier is better, which I know people will say all the time, but like
applying.
For applying, So the earlier you can apply, like get your application in, the higher your chance
of getting an interview.
Of getting an interview. And it's just like the kids that we see kind of later it's kind of harder to separate them, and it's because everyone's like very close in terms of everything. They're all like super incredible.
And you can actually find Team DSAS publishes this data and you can find a table that shows like when you apply and the likelihood of you getting an interview. And the reason mostly is because they only have so many interview invitations. And so if you apply early, let's say they interview 200 people. Well, now you're one of those 200 that they could choose from. As you go later, it whittles down. And now maybe you're competing for 50 interview slots instead of the 200. And so, yes, what Gabe is saying is absolutely true, which is consider when you're applying is just as important as the actual content that you're including in your application. Like, don't wait around until July and August to submit that primary application. Students always come to me and they say, well, the deadline's October. And I'm like, yeah, the deadline is October, but you'd be
don't do that.
to wait. So many people have already applied and probably pre-matched by the October date. And so you definitely, if the application opens in May, try to get it submitted by the end of May, early June, in my opinion, at the latest.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I would say also that's kind of harder now because like with COVID, it's hard to like get a tour, is try to talk to some students, try to figure out like if the school is good, because students will be brutally honest. Admins try to like gas up the school and say we're the best school ever, but really talk to students. And I mean, I can talk up my school. My school's great. I love it. I highly recommend it. If you're trying to debate between like staying in Texas or not, one thing that obviously plays a key role is finances, because there's in-state tuition if you're a resident, and so that plays kind of a huge role. But the great thing about McGovern that a lot of people don't really realize on like paper on a website is we're really much a community. We're really much family-based in terms of like everyone's here to make you a great physician. No one's trying to stab you in the back, which some other med schools may have. And anyone and everyone can get honors in our classes, which is how you grade. It's like ABC, so everyone can get an A. There's no like curving down or anything. And so that's
is the first year pass fail at McGovern?
Yeah, so the first year's pass fail, and then we do the first semester's pass fail, and then we do honors, high pass and pass. And then the other thing to ask about in along the way is questions about like preclinicals and clerkship and things like that. The reason I bring that up is, as you may or may not know, step one, which used to be the big metric, like the MCAT almost, is now becoming pass fail.
Yeah.
So that's no longer like a metric residencies will use. And I know you're thinking, man, that's like 8 years down the line, but it's something to like keep in mind and think about, what's going to help me when I apply for residency, what's going to help distinguish me. And so it's good to ask those types of questions.
And kind of related to what Gabe is saying, like fit is important. Like when y'all apply to college, I think a lot of y'all think about rankings. With medical school, ranking is not really the issue. It's more about where will I be the most, or where would I be the least miserable and be able to kind of be my best self. And so you may think, well, Baylor College of Medicine, that's the best school in Texas. That's where I need to go and I'll be the best doctor. It's just not true. Every medical school in Texas is a good medical school. It's just dependent on, will you fit in with that student body, with that culture, with that class, okay? Are you gonna be working with students who are gonna be cutthroat, or will they be more of a family? Will you be working with patient populations that you are kind of comfortable working with? If you go to Texas Tech El Paso or some of these other schools, they're into border medicine. That may be a type of medicine that you're not really interested in, and that's gonna be a secondary question that they ask you. And so it really is about fit, and less about, well, this school is higher ranked or looks better or is in Houston, so I have to go there. Like, don't limit yourself to that. That's a mistake, because if you get into medical school, as Gabe said, it is very tough and you want to feel comfortable there and supported there. And I can't always say that your top choice school will be that for you.
Yeah, definitely. The fit is so important. Because if you don't feel successful, if you don't feel happy, you won't be successful, no matter how hard you work. And at the end of the day, what really matters is if you are successful and if you're building connections and networking and things like that, which if you're doing at a school that fits you, that'll naturally come. You won't have to like think about it. So I definitely agree with that.
The other thing I would recommend to you all is to not limit yourself to just allopathic medical schools. I don't know if Gabe applied to any osteopathic, but I've always recommended applying to both MD and DO schools, especially here in Texas, just to give yourself more of a chance of getting interviews and just casting a wider net. Osteopathic medical schools, the admission requirements in terms of numbers are a little lower, but they're not super low. I mean, it's still very competitive, and the gap between allopathic and osteopathic admission are very close. And then Gabe may know this too, they're merging residency programs for osteopathic and allopathic. And so they're going to be competing for the same spots. But basically, give yourself a chance and don't shoot yourself in the foot by applying to too few schools, okay? You can always decide later down the line, I don't want to go to this school. But if you don't apply, you'll never have that choice. I think I've talked to some of y'all about this when I was in BioE, which is, I like the burden of choice. I want to be able to decide between multiple schools. That's a decision I want to make. I don't want to just be given one acceptance because I only applied to one school or two schools or no schools accepted me. And then you don't have a choice, because as Gabe was saying, fit is important. And if you can get 2 or 3 different schools to interview you, then you've got some choices and you'll feel better about your decision instead of feeling pigeonholed into one because you applied to too few schools. And students do get into medical schools outside of Texas. I don't want y'all to think you're limited to Texas, okay? Gabe went out of Texas for undergrad. I went out of my home state of North Carolina for grad school, and I benefited from that. You know what I mean? Don't feel like you have to stay in Houston or even stay in Texas. You could absolutely be, happy somewhere else. You can always come back to Texas for residency. You could always come back to Texas to practice. Just don't limit yourself because you think I need to stay in this bubble, because it's not going to benefit you in the long run.
So, Dr. Spillers, you mentioned don't, apply to too few schools. So thinking on the inverse, is there a max amount of schools that you would recommend people? I mean, because
Gabe, didn't you apply to a ton?
Yeah, I did. So the issue,
I usually say 15 to 20, but when I was in Georgia, 15 to 20 was a lot because there were only 4 medical schools. Texas has 15 medical schools, so you can apply to 15 and never leave the state. But I usually say apply to 15 or 20 sort of minimum, but I think you applied to a ton if I remember.
Yeah, I applied to like 50.
50 is way up there.
And
it comes down to money. I mean, it's very expensive. Yeah.
It was very expensive. And the other thing was like, there are a lot of secondaries, and you just get
those
tired
secondaries will kill you. Yeah.
of writing them, where you get to a point where you're just like, I'm just going to kind of copy and paste what I wrote earlier about.
I don't recommend 50. Like I said,
I don't
go
either.
with what you're comfortable. You'll want to look at their admissions data. Do they accept out-of-state students? What's their median GPAs and their MCATs and all of that? But like I said, definitely apply to every school in Texas, and then some select ones outside of the state that you feel like, hey, I'd be comfortable moving here, and also my numbers are kind of within competitive range.
Yeah, the thing about Texas is it's a flat rate for all the schools. So it doesn't matter if you apply to one school or all the schools, you're going to pay the same amount. So you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't apply to all of them, to be honest.
Someone asked in the chat about if you were to take a gap year, would you be able to do HPAC? Yes. So HPAC, if you all aren't familiar, and I actually had just met with AED to go over HPAC, is the Health Professions Advisory Committee here at the University of Houston. It's a committee of 18 faculty that review application materials for medical and dental applicants from UH. And this doesn't exist because UH thinks it's important. Many of the medical and dental schools in Texas prefer committee letters. And I've talked to them this year, and they've confirmed that. So we have a committee because the medical and dental schools want committee letters. So when you get ready to apply to medical or dental school, you want to go through this committee letter review process. And that's a whole separate issue. It is on our website if you want to check it out. But if you are going to take a gap year, you are still eligible to go through HPAC. But we do typically set a cutoff of about 1 year. So if you've been out of school for 2 or more years, there's no real reason to do HPAC. Medical schools aren't going to necessarily pay that much attention to not having committee letter because they're going to say, well, of course you don't. You've been out of school for 2 years. So Gabe, I don't think you had a committee letter, but you didn't go here for undergrad. So it didn't really matter. Michigan may do letter. I don't remember if they do or not, but the fact is it's sort of a Texas thing. We got rid of it at Georgia, but in Texas, UH, you're sort of expected to go through the committee review. And again, if you're going to take a gap year, you're still eligible for it.
Yeah, definitely. Michigan didn't have one, but what I was going to respond to Michaela is the other reason I took a time off was to like get money.
Oh yeah.
You know, and you'd be surprised.
You got paid to work with Mohan.
Yeah, I did. So that helped pay for a lot of things. I was actually planning before COVID to take a trip to like Europe, and like, but you know that didn't quite happen. So
sure.
That's okay. That's like another benefit for like taking a year off and not doing school is you can work and you know, if you have loans, you can pay those off. Mm-hmm. Or if you have money you want to pay for med school, you can work and do that. Mm-hmm. You know, Houston's pretty cheap in terms of cost of living for a big city and a lot of opportunities, which is kind of great.
And you don't live at home, correct?
No, I do actually. I live at home.
You do? Oh
yeah.
Gosh. I was going to say, like, don't live at home, y'all, but if it works
I mean, with
for you,
COVID, it's COVID right now. So it's like,
Sure.
So, but
I moved out, at 20? And I never looked back. So
I mean, there are people that move out all the time. I was just trying to save as much money as possible, but
I get it. But medical school is a full-time job. Don't think that you can go and still be able to sort of have the schedule that y'all have had as undergrads. It's not going to work like that. And so I'm not getting on to Gabe because he's living at home or whatever, that works for him. But just keep in mind that like you're going to be full-time, fully invested. And if you've got a lot of distractions and your parents or your siblings and your friends, like there's going to have to be some changes in terms of how you structure your time to handle the load that medical schools are going to throw at you. And that's a part of the responsibility, mature decision-making that they're looking for even before they accept you. They want proof that you can handle that, you know? Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you got to get
Okay. So what I was going to say is, so like I said earlier, medical school is very much a different beast. The thing that McGovern does that a lot of Texas schools do is they have pass-fail. That allows you to figure out how you study best. Mm-hmm. Some people in my class are night owls, so they don't go to class. They just watch the recordings. All of our lectures are recorded and uploaded. And then some people like myself, I'm a morning person. So I like to be done with my day by like 12, and then I'm done with my day. And that's been great for me. and you get bombarded with a lot of resources. It's almost too much. They give you so many different resources, third-party resources, textbooks, and all this. And it takes time for you to figure out, okay, how do I study best? Some of you may have heard of Anki, which is like a flashcard app. And maybe you like flashcards, or maybe you like reading the textbook or whatever. And it'll take you time. And part of that, like I said, Dr. Spell says, is maturity. You have to, decide, what is good for me, what is not good for me, and also be open to changing, because sometimes what you thought worked in college may not work in med school, and you have to, take a step back and figure out, hey, what was wrong, what was working, what wasn't working. Maybe I need to talk to other students that did well, figure out what they did. So.
Yeah, that's very good. And I want, for those of you that are having to hold down jobs outside of class that may not be research or clinical, don't think that hurts you. If anything, admissions committees really appreciate students who are having to work 15, 20, 25 hours at a restaurant or at a grocery store or whatever while doing classes, because they see that as being a skill that you can apply to medical school, because now you know what it's like to be overwhelmed. You know what it's like to structure your time in an efficient way. They don't have to worry about you. Whereas the student who has the 4.0, but is only taking 12 hours and isn't doing research and they're just focused on classes, they're unproven. They prefer proven students. So this goes into what Teresa has asked. She asked, medical schools consider science GPA. How would getting lower grades in engineering courses affect our chances if it lowers our cumulative? First off, engineering won't factor into your science GPA for the most part. It won't factor into your BCPM GPA. It will affect your overall, but they do look at trends, right? They look at, are you challenging yourself? So you are in BioE, you're taking 16, 17, sometimes 18 credit hours. They're not expecting you to get straight A's, okay? But if you're coming out on the other side pretty good, I would say 3.5, 3.4, they'll give you credit for that. Your organic, your biochem, your physics, those need to stay pretty good. But if your engineering classes, circuits, something like that, you're getting B's in, I wouldn't stress too much about it, because they will give you credit for taking a much harder path and still being able to keep your head above water. If they wanted 4.0 students, they would find them. There are enough 4.0 students out there to fill every seat in every medical school, okay? But they don't take just 4.0 students. And the reason is exactly what I said, which is 4.0 alone does not equate to good doctor, good medical student. It only equates to I can take tests and do well. So when it comes to actual performance in medical school, it's like drinking from a fire hose. It's being able to handle all of that information and balance all those responsibilities. So to them, a 3.5, 3.6 student taking 17 credit hours would be much more prepared than the 4.0 with the 12 credit hours and only focusing on their GPA and sort of babying it. These are heuristics. They're not, absolute things. I mean, certainly a higher GPA will help you. But what I'm telling you is admissions committees aren't lying to you when they say we look holistically, and they won't punish you for going a harder route and maybe not coming out completely 4.0 sterling at the end. Because again, they don't need a 4.0 for you to perform well in medical school. They just need you to be able to handle some of the science well enough and not panic the minute you have these amount of classes to do, and you got to go do clinic and all of that all at once.
Yeah, Teresa, the other thing I'll tell you about myself personally is I didn't do so great in my intro bio classes. It was just something I just didn't care about. I got really low grades. I still passed the course, but it was not great grades, because I was like, this is plant biology. Why does this matter? How is this going to make me a better physician? So I didn't do so great in that. But when I was working at U of H and during my time off, I actually took a couple of grad level classes. I took endocrinology, which is a 4,000 level class. I took immunology, which is another 4,000 level class. And I got A's in both of them. And I think to med school committees, they saw, okay, yeah, you did bad in intro bio, which, kind of shocking, but whatever. But I went up as I went into harder classes, and that resonated really well. That looked really good for me, because it was I took harder material and did better. So
and it was more recent, and that's what we come out with the gap year. They look at trends, and so if you struggle a little bit early on, that's not as bad as struggling late. If you feel like, hey, I'm about to graduate with BioE, my grades are kind of mixed, take that time, do the post-bac, do the specialized masters, go and take exactly these courses that Gabe is talking about, because that's you, can you handle 3,000, 4,000 level science, maybe 2 to 3 a semester for a year while you're doing some research or shadowing? And they'll say, okay, like clearly this applicant has figured out what works for them. Now we trust that they can handle it versus what we saw maybe 2 years ago from them. And so don't ever think, well, I'm about to graduate, it's done, I have no way of improving. It's just not true. It's exactly what we were talking about with the gap year, which is, hey, if the grades are the weak spot, go work on them, and if it's multiple things you can do, like Gabe did, do that. You can do classes and work in a research lab, great, because that even shows that you can handle both. And you're in immunology, you're in endocrinology, you're taking these higher level classes and performing well in them, and they're going to be much more impactful because they were just last semester, not 2-3 years ago. Any other questions? These are good questions. I don't know how.
Yeah, two things. I was going to say, if anybody has any questions at 8 o'clock, we plan to end this just because it's late night and everything. But so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. One thing I'm going to ask you, Gabe, though, is as being a first-year medical student, is there anything that you wish you would have known beforehand? I know this is a very general, basic question,
Yeah.
but it's just always great to get people's opinions. What do you wish you would have known, beforehand?
Yeah, it's a very good question. The advice I got, which was good, was to do things that I wanted to do. So for example, I read books that I'd always wanted to read. I took a couple of classes online about things I'd always wanted to learn, and it was all free. That's one thing I recommend you do before you start med school. The other thing is I took, like I said, endocrinology and immunology. Those tend to be harder classes for most med students. And even though it's not a medical school level class, just having that kind of basic intro, if you're looking for like classes to boost your GPA or help you out, will set you apart. Because it'll make studying for that material, because it's your second time seeing it, so much easier.
Anatomy too, I think.
And anatomy, I was going to say, anatomy is that one class that I didn't take that I kind of wish I would have done, because anatomy, it's a lot. You learn everything top to bottom. We just had our exams on the head and neck, and it was just anatomy on the head and neck. And you're like, oh, it's only, like a foot, and it's not that big. There's so many important things in there.
And they're not colored in person.
No. They just tag a body, and it's, everything is the same color. And so you have to spend some time studying that material. And if you could, learn a little anatomy before school in a class, and you get an A in it, and it helps your GPA, that's huge. That will really, help you. The cool thing about McGovern is they also have a program called the pre-entry program, which if you get asked to do it, if they think you can get some benefit out of it. It basically is like I think it's like 6 or 8 week course that's like a mini med school. It's like to make sure you're okay. They teach you some anatomy
before, right?
It is the summer before, yeah. So
UTMB has something like that too. I think a lot of medical schools are starting to implement those.
Yeah, they are. So and it's great. I know a couple of people that did that, and they got a lot out of it. They're doing really well in med school. So yeah, but my first thing advice, honestly, is the summer before, don't study, don't buy books or anything. Just go do something you want to go do. Go have fun. Because I think for a lot of people, biomedical engineering isn't all fun. You can be honest, it's not always fun. I'm not Dr. Abidian or anything. It's not all fun, and like capstone or senior design isn't always the best time. So you definitely need time to do things that you want to do. I took classes in math. I'm a huge nerd, so I took classes in math, and that was really what I wanted to learn, and it was cool. But yeah.
So Carter has a question. If you want to go ahead.
I have a question.
Somebody wanted to know if
ask it.
You could put your email in the thing too.
Yeah. Let me do that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Carter.
Carter. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take organic chemistry in the spring, and if I'm being honest, the COVID situation is it's kind of hindering my studies, and it's really hard for me to keep in contact and learn well. So I know like pre-med, like for pre-meds, it's not great to pass fail, and that we should for standardized grades. But sometimes I feel like as we go through harder classes, like especially me, because I can't, this like virtual environment is not really that great for me.
Sure.
So like what would you recommend if I start struggling is like in organic chemistry and those upper level classes and I don't exactly get the grade I want?
I mean, so there is one thing I want to mention. So you do have the option to opt for the S, but I cannot guarantee it'll be accepted. So historically, like when Gabe applied, no medical schools took pass grades or S grades. Okay. McGovern in particular said that they're not sure if they'll take S grades from this semester. And so if you are struggling, I would encourage you to try to just stick with what you've got and do as well as you can. If you get a C or lower, take the S. But if you do better, then keep the letter grade. If you take the S, keep in mind that you might need to repeat it for a letter grade for it to eventually count to apply. For those of you that haven't done SEP workshops, I absolutely recommend SEP workshops, especially for classes like chem. Have you done that before, Carter? Taking any?
Yes, I do take SEP workshops.
Yeah. If you're struggling, and you think I cannot get through organic 1, I'm going to take the S. If you want to retake it, do it at a community college. Like, do what works for you. Okay. But you do have to be honest with yourself about, can I handle this in the long run? You know, once I'm in medical school, or is this something where I'm kind of hitting my upper limit or my wall? You know what I mean? But what I'm advocating is that you try to keep the letter grade, especially for these fall courses and going forward, because I don't think medical schools are going to be allowing these pass fail and S grades basically after this semester. They allowed them for spring and summer, but I'm not seeing any definitive word from the medical schools in Texas that they're allowing them in the future. So it may not count for you if you take the S grade.
Well, I haven't taken an S grade yet. I'm doing great in the fall, but
and I'm not saying I'm not saying keep, a D. I'm not saying even that you can keep the C. I mean, if you want to take the S, take the S. Just keep in mind that you might need to repeat the course for a letter grade later down the line. And that may benefit you. You get the S, but you kind of got the hang of organic. Maybe if you take it again, you could pull out the A or B the second go round.
So like for like those pre-med courses, if you don't do so hot on those and you take the S, it's, I guess, recommended to take it again.
Yes, down the line. Because of those two reasons. One is I'm not sure schools will accept it. And then also, even if they do, you won't be as competitive as a student who got an A or a B. So like if you were applying when Gabe was applying and Gabe's got an A or a B in organic and you got an S, it's a moot point. They're going to take Gabe because they don't know how you performed. In their eyes, if you got an A or a B, you would have kept the A or a B. So it's not very diagnostic of how much you know the material. It's just an S. It just means, hey, you did something to meet some minimum threshold. It doesn't mean you did well in the course. Does that make sense? So
what if you got like a B or B minus in it?
If you get a B or B minus, do not take the S. Please God, don't take it. I had way too many students asking me that. And in Texas, there are no plus and minuses for Texas medical schools. It's all B.
I got a B and I'm in. So that's the other thing.
B's are not bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Do not take an S or withdraw a class from a B. I had an art.
Yeah. Yes. You don't do that. Because it'll be, you'll be fine. I mean, I got a B and I got in.
Perfection is not attainable. Okay.
Yeah. So
don't baby the 4.0. It's just not for you.
And the other thing I would tell you that you may or may not have heard is something called law of diminishing returns. There's only so much you can study. Like even me as a med student, I want to learn as much as I can for my patient, but learning that a certain ion channel is from chromosome 7 isn't going to help a patient. Like, yeah, it's great for a PhD, but like knowing that isn't going to change the drug I'm going to give. I just need to know which drug to give to help that patient, if that makes sense, Carter. Like there's going to be some nights where you're like, man, I don't know what's going on. And that's okay. It's going to happen, And I think U of H, I'm pretty sure, has tutors, and there's no shame in like asking for help.
Yeah, launch and then the SEP workshops I would recommend for.
Well, I just felt like I was a stronger student when I was in like on campus and like those resources.
No, I agree.
Just went to an office and I could just talked about that. So
I took one online class when I was in college and I dropped it. It sucked. And so I can't imagine what y'all are going through having to do it all. But at the end of the day, everyone else is going through the same thing. and there will be people who succeed in that. And the bottom line is that's who they're going to prefer. And so you just kind of have to grit your teeth and get through it, you know? Yeah, it's a tough scenario, and they will be accommodating. UH is accommodating you by allowing you to take the S. I just think at the end of the day, when you're applying to medical school, the S isn't going to do you a lot of favors. And there's no point in having to retake it, but you have to have a game plan to do better. So,
Definitely.
someone asked about building up resume with COVID. So shadowing is not really going to be a thing for a little while longer, but virtual shadowing is absolutely an option. And most medical schools are fine with it, and they've encouraged it. And we do have some links on virtual shadowing on our website under the PreHealth resources tab. So if you can't be physically in a clinic or a hospital, virtual shadow, that's fine. There's also something called informational interview. So if there was a doctor you were going to shadow and now you can't, you're still, you know, you can still interview them about their path, their career, have a set amount of questions, you know, and talk to them for about 30 minutes. It's still investigating the field in the way that the medical schools are looking. And we do have information and examples for informational interviews on our website as well. Were you saying something good?
No. I was going to comment on that.
Michaela said something about study channels on Teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of the other thing I was going to recommend to you, because I'm the same way. I'm much of a more in person. I think Dr. Spills was talking. I always like hang out with him all the time. I can't stand to email people. I hate it. It's the worst thing ever. But I'm much of a more in people person. And so I don't know how U of H works. We have Zoom, but we also have WebEx. And so what I do, and it's very awkward at first, I'm not going to lie about that, but I will say, hey guys, I'm going to have my room open and y'all can just come and we can study virtually. And it's very weird at first because it's I'm entering someone's room. It's almost like breaking into their dorm room. It's very weird, you know? And then you do it and you do it a couple of times and there'll be a couple of people that you can definitely study with. The other thing is, I don't know if the U of H library has sanctioned off that study spaces to keep everyone separate, because McGovern has done that where they've
BMES has, y'all have study space, y'all said.
Yeah, we have the lounge here, which Matt talked about. So, I mean, feel free to congregate here and do whatever your work. We had a group here yesterday or last night, actually, studying for mechanics or something, I think. So we have people coming in here. And like we had said, we have it accommodated for all the distancing and everything. So, I mean,
isn't parking free on the weekend?
Yeah, after, I believe, 4 p.m. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Spillers, but after 4 p.m., right? You can park.
I don't know.
I think you still need a valid UH pass, I think.
Yeah, I don't want to go ahead and say anything on that because I don't know and I don't want.
I'm almost positive you can park on campus for free somewhere.
There's places,
but do look. Why do I feel like I park in the garage by the stadium, and I want to say the arm is up sometimes. I don't know. I don't remember. Things are a little loose right now with COVID. I will.
Yeah.
With parking. I haven't been to campus since April, so I don't know. I know. I believe. Oh, I got it. Yeah, lots. You need a UH permit, but you can park anywhere after 4. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know there's some lots which are kind of free. I don't know how they're really working, but I don't want to say something and then somebody goes and gets a ticket.
Yeah, it's online, I think.
I know that if you have a permit, you can park anywhere at any time over the weekend, starting at Friday. And anyone correct me if I'm wrong, so please.
Yeah, but as we had all mentioned, the officers as well, we're all here. We've been through, the majority of us have been through the courses. We know what it's like, and we know the material. So we're always, here to open up and ask questions to as your peers. So don't hesitate or anything like that.
So before I go to, I just want to reiterate, if any of y'all have individual questions, feel free to email us prehealth@uh.edu. And then, like I said, you're welcome to make an appointment and navigate and utilize the website. I do have to run, but it was very good seeing all y'all. Definitely good seeing you, Gabe. I hope everything's going well. The worst time ever to start medical school, but I think McGovern, you're in good hands over there. So do stay in touch.
We'll do. Yeah, the worst part is over. It's getting a lot better now. The hardest thing is just anatomy. It's just so much, and once anatomy is over,
so you were given a cadaver. Y'all have the whole term.
Yep, and we do
ceremony at the
yeah,
end.
yeah, and we're doing dissections, which I know a lot of schools aren't doing. So
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Thank you,
But
Dr.
I'm
Spillers, for
happy
coming
to.
out.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say I can stay on for like another 10, 15 minutes if someone has like more personal
Yeah,
questions. I'm happy to
all
stay
right.
on. But take care,
I'll
Dr.
see y'all.
Spillers.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
one.
Dr. Spillers.
Spillers,
Dr.
really
Spillers.
appreciate it. Good seeing you
Thanks.
again. So if y'all want to go ahead and leave, y'all are more than welcome to. If you want to stick around and ask some questions, you're also more than welcome to. But thank you all for coming out. We seriously appreciate it, and we hope that y'all got a lot of useful information from this and got to know Dr. Spillers and apparently the man that's the king of all thrones, Gabe.
I was hoping someone would notice.
Oh yeah.
I did. My lab buddy forever.
But no, thank you all for coming out. If you again stick around, ask questions, don't don't hesitate or anything.
You're welcome.
But we seriously appreciate it, and especially thank you, Gabe.
You're welcome.
For,
Yeah, no,
taking the time.
You're welcome. Yeah, if y'all are kind of intimidated because y'all have like maybe more personal questions, I'm happy to take them over email. You can email me whenever.
Yeah. We're gonna
send out my
also,
email maybe.
Yeah, we're gonna give out Gabe's email. So if y'all have any questions, like further questions, y'all could email him, and then y'all have Dr. Spiller's email.
I have a question real quick, Gabe.
Sure, what's up?
When did you take the MCAT?
Yeah, I took it right after biochem. So I took it, I guess it was 3 years before I applied. So yeah.
Wow.
Follow
Those
up
scores
to
are
that.
valid for 5 years, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Follow up to that.
Yes.
Would you have opted to take it during your gap year? Like, do you regret doing that? Not that that's like bad, but I don't want to.
Yeah, you don't want to study for it and think about it. Yeah, so it's a mixed bag. So it depends. I mean, Greg is gone, but it depends on the biochem. So so my school